Hello and welcome to Steve's Backyard Bonsai. Today I'm pruning up my Satsuki Azalea. This is the azalea that some weeks ago, I separated. There were two of them in one pot. I had a feeling they were pot bound, and they were. I had a heck of a time getting the soil out of the roots. As you will see, there have been no ill effects for having had the roots exposed like that. So let's look at it and get started on the pruning. It's a very rainy day, so I'm hoping that the lighting in here is good enough for you to see this. This is a lush green with a lot of new growth, new since I exposed all the roots. I thought I had seen flower buds that were setting for next year, but they were this year's flower buds that did not open. So I have not seen any flower buds at all on this tree. Every one I see turns out to be last year's, and they just fall off when you touch them. So what I want to do is concentrate on these outliers to try and define the pads that are developing. And I believe that I can do a real good job at this point in its development. Starting over here, if I got rid of this whole thing, it doesn't decimate the pad at all. I don't know if you can see that. There's quite a bit of foliage here, but I like the negative space that's created if that foliage were not there. And looking up from the bottom of the tree, it doesn't make much difference at all. So right here, there's a little one that'll come right off. And this is an example of last year's flower bud. This is an example of last year's flower bud that did not open. And that could have been because it was root bound. And as you can see, they just break off. These grow readily from cuttings, but I'm not going to grow any cuttings this year. That comes off. I can clean that up better. This would make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 viable cuttings. And it's worth doing if you have the lifetime ahead of you to wait. This tree was grown from a cutting, one that I put in the ground when my second child was born. I was really afraid I wasn't going to ever make enough money to support 2 kids. So I planted azaleas in my backyard from cuttings. There were a ton of azaleas on my property. I talked to some guy who did it. Seemed easy enough. And that was 35 years ago, or about 35 years ago. This is not quite as old because I did it again a little later on. And as you can see, if this is the front, that did not make much of a difference at all. So I've got that pad isolated. I'm going to go in branch by branch and remove anything that doesn't help the pad and refine everything that does. Dead stub. An outlier is being created here. Just going to take that off. This stuff that's hugging the crotch down here, Not quite the crotch, but takes away from the appearance of looking up into the branches. And I think I'm going to change the camera angle so you look more up into the branches. Right about there. This was planted in a mixture of Kanuma and black lava, which is the same mixture it had been in. It will develop roots quickly in this mixture, so I may look to repot next summer after it blooms. This variety blooms late. All right, so I've created the distance from the pad around it. Now I want to eliminate height, and the best way to do that is to take all of these longer shoots off the bottom. That's such a typical way for azaleas to grow. Now I'm still left with 3 shoots or more, 3 or 4 shoots on each branch. Of course, I want to reduce that, and I want to have a level for this pad. And it's going to be tough to get here. I should have pruned these a little bit earlier on, but I am going to attempt to. All right, so I'll take this outlier off of there, reduce the height in the back, and I'm going to take the growing tip off of this. The worst that'll happen is I don't get a flower or it dies. The best thing that could happen is that it bifurcates there and I have more opportunity on this pad. Okay, this next piece is probably the most challenging. Everything is tall. I still want to reduce it to 2 or 3. I'm going to leave 3. No, but which 3? That was either a good or a bad choice. Not so sure. And I'm going to reduce these down. Hopefully by the end of this season, it's only the beginning of August, these will send up some new shoots or the start of some new shoots. All right, so that's got the pad more level. This is really terrible. I hope more opportunities avail themselves in the spring. Here's an opportunity to make it really shorter, but that would be too short. And an old pruning stub. I'm also cleaning out debris while I'm doing this. Okay, so the idea for this tree and me was to be able to look up and see really nice branch structure. This is keeping me from being able to do that. But if I did not have this, I would severely weaken this branch. And I'm going to take off another couple of small insignificant things. And then I think I have to live with what this branch is giving me. I'm finding a couple of more places to go. And also flower buds that never developed, that just break off. I think I have to shorten this. shorten this some more. And it's a pity this is right in front. Am I tempted? I'm tempted to take part of this off. That'll help me make the decision later on. Well, I want to see what develops here, if anything. I'm sure something will. Taking off some old leaves. Some more dormant, dead flower buds from this season. And cleaning up those centers might encourage growth to come from the same areas. This one is still too long. Looking from the side. I could cut it off here, but I think it might be best to just shorten it. What's going on here? Got a real tall section that's part of the two. I don't want to lose it. Shorten that. Shorten that. Okay. All right, so that's got this pad pruned up. I believe there might be a little more cleanup that I have to do. I'm going to move on to the other pads. Work them all in the same way. Try and get some levels for these pads if possible. And we'll do that in time lapse. I hope that wasn't too tedious. I want to start by showing you, and maybe the light has improved a little bit, I want to show you the base of this tree. It's quite beautiful. There was a limb chopped off there, or a root or something, so that's not so nice. But maybe I can carve that down over time and improve it. This branch continues to be enigmatic to me. I mean, I like it. Without it, it's just a 3-trunk tree, but there is crossing happening here, and here for that matter. So maybe this comes down over time, down and forward. Maybe I move a few things around. I really don't want to. Now, this was a view of the base. Let me give you a view of the top of the tree. I don't have the levels that I was hoping for. You know, these would be lower levels there, so I've got to basically raise these levels up significantly and apart from one another. But the tree is pruned up for now. There's still a few errant low leaves that I'll pluck out. You don't have to watch me do it. And I'll clean up the landscape, put it back outside, let it get the benefit of this rainy day, which has cleared up a little bit. It got very hot in here momentarily, and I've opened the windows up and turned the fan back on. When it gets hot in the greenhouse, it gets hot in the greenhouse. Let's see, is that doing anything for me? It is doing nothing for me. And this is doing nothing for me. All right. We have our club meeting tomorrow night of the Eastern Suffolk Bonsai Society. And I was going to prune this up at that meeting, but I thought it would be better to do it here where I didn't feel pressured to make bad decisions or different decisions I might regret later. So to that meeting, I'm going to bring my cherry trio, which is also in need of a haircut. Let me bring it in so it dries out a little bit before the meeting tomorrow. But this is my Satsuki Azalea. I'm not 100% sure it's Satsuki, but I believe that it is. So if the flowers are what is telling, I'll show you the flowers next year. But every time I do a plant identification, it comes up Satsuki Azalea. And this was one of the azaleas that was growing on my property when we bought the house 42 years ago. So I hope you like it. I don't. I have some reservations about some things, but I may get some new shoots which will change everything. That's the beauty of bonsai. Next year you might get a whole different idea. Thank you for keeping me company in my backyard. Just thought I'd give you a 360 view of my cherry trio. I've got some crazy pruning decisions to make. Should have made them a long time ago, but we'll see. There's significant dieback on this. I noticed everything that I've left for dieback, it has died back to that point. You can see it here. Interesting. All right, this will be worked on at my monthly club meeting. If you do not belong to a club, find one. It's worth driving a few miles. Sometimes you have to drive really far, and personally I can't recommend that. But the people bring beautiful trees that they've been working on for years, and if for no other reason than the inspiration factor, that's a reason to go. The other most important reason is that you're going to learn something from these people. All right. Thanks again.